Fans of Taylor Swift thought they had heard every twist in her dating history, until this week, when one of her most low-key ex-boyfriends turned up on Russia's most wanted list. If you've been anywhere near entertainment or political news over the past few days, you've probably seen the headlines. Conor Kennedy, the man Taylor Swift briefly dated back in 2012, has reportedly been placed on Russia's international wanted list. This isn't some random internet rumor. It's being reported by major outlets, and it's tied to something Conor did years ago that most people had completely forgotten about. So why is this suddenly everywhere right now? A Moscow court authorized Conor's arrest in absentia earlier this month, and Russian state media confirmed the charges shortly after. Because the story touches two worlds that almost never collide, Taylor Swift's dating history and the ongoing war in Ukraine, it's exploded across entertainment feeds as much as news ones. People are asking how a guy once photographed walking around Martha's Vineyard with Taylor Swift ended up wanted by a foreign government. Let's walk through what actually happened. Conor Kennedy is the son of U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and the grandson of the late Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Back in 2012, when he was a teenager, he briefly dated a young Taylor Swift. A relationship that became tabloid fodder at the time, mostly because of their public appearances together at the Kennedy family compound. Fast forward a decade, in 2022, without telling most of his family or friends where he was really going, Conor traveled overseas and enlisted in Ukraine's International Legion, a volunteer force made up of foreign fighters who joined Ukraine's military after Russia's full-scale invasion began. He had no prior military background. He later said he simply felt compelled to help after watching the invasion unfold, so he went to the Ukrainian embassy and signed up. He served for roughly 2.5 months on the northeastern front, near Kharkiv, before quietly returning to the United States to resume his law studies at Georgetown. For years, that chapter of his life stayed mostly out of the spotlight. But now, Russian authorities have caught up with it. A Moscow court authorized his arrest in absentia on charges of acting as a mercenary in an armed conflict, and reports indicate an appeals court upheld that decision. If he were ever detained, he could reportedly face 7 to 10 years in prison under Russian law. It's worth noting Conor has not publicly commented on the charges, and neither has his father. Interestingly, this news arrives just weeks after Conor announced his engagement to Brazilian singer Julia B. So he's currently juggling one of the more unusual news cycles imaginable, moving from wedding headlines to international wanted list headlines almost overnight. Now let's get into how people are reacting, because the online response has been a mix of shock, curiosity, and even some dark humor. A lot of Taylor Swift fans are having a moment with this, jokingly noting that out of all her exes, the one who ended up on an international wanted list is the one nobody really talks about anymore. Others are reacting with genuine respect, pointing out that whatever people think about the broader politics involved, voluntarily enlisting to fight in a war zone with no military training takes real courage. There's also a noticeably split reaction along political lines. Some commentators are using this story to highlight the contrast between RFK Jr.'s public profile and his son's very different, very hands-on choice to get involved in the Ukraine conflict. Others feel the story is being blown out of proportion just because of the Kennedy name and the Taylor Swift connection, arguing that foreign fighters have joined Ukraine's forces since 2022, and Conor is simply one of many now facing Russian legal action as a result. On social media, you can see three main camps forming. One camp is purely here for the celebrity crossover. The idea that a Taylor Swift ex is somehow tangled up in a geopolitical story is just too wild not to talk about. Another camp is treating this more seriously, discussing what it says about the risks Americans take when they choose to get involved in foreign conflicts. And a third camp is questioning why Russian authorities are pursuing legal action years after the fact, with some viewing it as a political statement more than a straightforward legal case. So why does this story matter beyond the surface-level celebrity angle? For one, it's a reminder that a decade-old, mostly forgotten relationship can resurface in headlines when new information ties back to it, something Taylor Swift's massive fanbase makes almost unavoidable. Anything connected to her name, even loosely, tends to get amplified instantly. But there's a bigger picture here too. Conor's situation reflects a pattern we've seen throughout the war. Foreign volunteers who joined Ukraine's forces facing legal consequences from Russia, sometimes years after their service ended. It raises real questions about how far that kind of legal reach extends, and what it could mean for other Americans who took similar paths early in the conflict. It also puts an interesting spotlight on the Kennedy family more broadly. RFK Jr. has spoken in the past about being proud of his son's choice, even while acknowledging they didn't fully see eye to eye on it. Watching that father-son dynamic play out publicly, especially with RFK Jr. now serving in a prominent government role, adds another layer people are paying attention to. At the end of the day, this story sits right at the intersection of celebrity curiosity and serious geopolitical consequence. Which is exactly why it's spreading the way it is. So here's a question for you. Do you think Conor Kennedy's decision to fight in Ukraine was a brave personal choice? Or do you think stories like this get more attention than they deserve just because of who he once dated? Let us know what you think in the comments below.